What is good, YouTube? It is Andy here from kaizentcg. I run an online Pokemon business, and we have a problem. PSA has just increased their grading fees and turnaround times. This ain't the first time they did it. Won't be the last. And so they increased, they took away just the TCG bulk and just did value bulk now. For Americans, you guys are getting prices from 21 to 25. And for us Canadians here, it was around 27 up to 35. So we're paying $8 more per card. And the turnaround times are 96 business days. So you're looking at least 4 to 5 months minimum. So pretty much half a year that your cards are going to be stuck in PSA, and that's a problem, right? Like if you're running a Pokemon business or a TCG business, you got to think deeply about sending cards to PSA for grading compared to just flipping the raw card and waiting 5-6 months, because if you do get a PSA 9, then you're kind of cooked. You lose out all that opportunity cost, all that time, and that's just dead money sitting there, right? And obviously there are faster tiers. They bumped up $5 on the higher tiers, like value and regular stuff like that. But they also added 5 business days on that as well. So, you know, PSA is having a issue with the insane demand. And to curb that demand, they gotta increase the price, right, to slow it down. But I'll warn you guys, back in 2020s, same thing happened. They increased it. They went from doing about 15,000 cards a day up to like double, triple that. And they were having trouble, and they shut down PSA completely in 2021. Why do I know this? Because I was starting my grading journey back then. I sent over 400 cards in a submission in January 2021. And they said, you know, we're going to increase bulk turnaround times to 200 business days. Right now it's 96. So it's like double, right? Which is like a year. Well, my cards didn't come back to me until it was August of 2022. And I waited a year and a half. Now, why was this important? Well, at that time, I was buying a lot of vintage because that was the hot thing. Modern was not, there wasn't much hyper demand for modern. It was readily available, but vintage, it was the vintage boom of 2020, the Logan Paul hype, if you guys remember that. And so I sent a lot of good cards to PSA that were vintage, and you know, when I sent them, they were peaking, you know, all-time highs in 2021. But by the time they came back in mid-2022, we were entering the bear cycle for Pokemon, and a lot of those vintage cards, especially lower grades, like 10s were not, like 10s still took a hit, but like it was the PSA 7, 8, 9s, because even those cards you were making good money on it if you were flipping it. And yeah, they dropped 50, 60, 70, 80% from the all-time highs. And that's a cautionary tale as like opportunity cost, right? Because if you send right now, it takes 6 months, but if they continue to get backed up, they can increase price again, or it gets to a point where they just have to shut it down. Right now, if you guys read the PSA article that they sent out, they are grading 90,000 cards a day globally. So in a month, 30 days, that's 2.7 million graded cards. And clearly, they are not able to keep up with that demand. And coincide with that right now is that we are in a massive TCG boom. Everybody's grading their One Piece cards because they're easily to grade, and the grading market for One Piece, the supply is very low, so the premiums are very high. I've seen this with vintage. So back in 2020, yeah, whatever was out there, but grading hit a boom, and you started seeing vintage cards going for crazy amounts. I remember, was it a base set PSA 9 Charizard's going for like tens of thousands of dollars, PSA 8 going for like 10 grand, first edition Charmanders and Eevees and Squirtles going for 5-10 grand. Like, it was insane because there wasn't a lot of supply of those. Like, people didn't grade a lot of them. There were, you know, hundreds of copies out there, but the amount of demand during COVID was unreal. So the supply was shocked, right? And something similar can happen in this market, even though the grading is way more. It's just demand is unreal right now. And it's not only Pokemon. Sports is doing its thing. All the new people in One Piece. You got One Piece is booming, a cultural phenomenon right now. You got, you know, all those big streamers, Speed, Mr. Beast, all those guys on the One Piece train. And so you're getting all those things sent in. And then on top of that, you got DBZ and Yu-Gi-Oh as well. That is also getting graded because that is also booming. Along with Riftbound and other TCGs, Lorcana. So you add all the TCGs together and sports, and at the rate that these sets keep coming out, people want to grade, right? Back then, grading was kind of like a lot more niche. Most people are still singles collector, but grading is a lot more often. There wasn't a collector app to look at your portfolio and things like that. And the mystery bag stuff wasn't as popular. Now with this hype, there's the mystery bags, there's, you know, pack pulling games like power packs, there's vending shows. So the demand for slabs is huge. The accessibility is a lot easier, and just the liquidity of it. A lot of big companies are buying it by the droves. So the amount of people that are into slabs is like way more than it was before. And I feel like PSA is trying to slow down the sending, but I don't think that's going to work. People are still going to send, and we might be at a tipping point for PSA, because they're going to get to a point where it's like, okay, 2.7 million, but what if that goes to 3 million, 4 million? At some point, they're just going to have to say, all right, this backlog is too crazy. We need to shut it down like they did before, you know, or just increase the turnaround times and the price hike again. So don't be surprised if you see the prices go up again, because back during COVID times, I remember prices of to get subs, it was a lottery. After they shut it down, it was a lottery, and then it was like $600, $300, and over time, as they got through the amount of submissions, that the prices started to come down, and then we entered the bear market. It was like a 3-year unwind, and then 2024 we saw prices pretty reasonable. It was like 18 bucks Canadian or like 14 US with like 30-day turnaround for bulk. That was like the bottom, because I remember I was sending it and it would be back from sending it and getting back to like 6 to 8 weeks. So that was like one of the better times. However, now that we're in a situation here where the amount that people are just sending is just too much for them, and what's going to happen is, yeah, like things are going to come back slower, and I guess like maybe people grade a lot less junk. Like you know, you guys see cards like ARs and IRs, those 510 EXs that are getting graded and stuff like that. People can't really send those anymore. You got to pick and choose. And it's going to affect the flipping and the business side of things, right? Because now, you know, there's a premium of finding raw, and what could happen is people are not going to send to grading as much, or they choose another company. So that also during that time, CGC just came out for grading, and they were able to take up market share because they were able to get the turnaround times faster, and a lot of people decided to grade with CGC. So this time around, that's going to probably happen again, where people will send to CGC. There's also TAG, there's ARS, there's a bunch of other companies, and people will send it there. But PSA is still the most liquid, and yeah, the quality has gone down as well. I was at the show this weekend here in Vancouver, big show, and yeah, there was a fake Chinese slab, and it was graded by PSA. It didn't have the Chinese stamp; it was the Captain's Pikachu, and PSA encapsulated that. So things are slipping through the cracks, you know. So basically, quality of service is going down, longer turnaround times, higher prices. It's not looking good, right? And I wouldn't be surprised if they shut down again, if they have to, because this boom is insane. Last time we didn't have One Piece. This time One Piece is explosive. It is catapulted itself as the third TCG behind Pokemon and Magic. But Magic doesn't grade too much, but you know, as a player base and the amount they sell, they're still holding number two. But like One Piece and Pokemon, right, for grading, and then now you got DBZ, Yu-Gi-Oh, Riftbound, Gundam, and a bunch of Lorcana. So there's so many TCGs right now. It's insane, and it's interesting because they're gonna have to figure it out if they want to shut it down or try to hire more and get the infrastructure so they can grade more. And that gives opportunities for TAG and CGC as alternatives. Now, other than the pristine and the TAG high-end stuff, it's not as liquid. On the mid to low-end stuff, PSA is still way more liquid. Like if you have just a TAG mid card, like people aren't really trying to buy that. But for collectors, it's fine. So they'll explore those options if you must have your cards graded. Otherwise, throw it in the binder and wait until times get better. Or, you know, like even for me in the business, I got to think about, is this card worth waiting 6 months for? Or should I just flip it and take that money and roll it over? Because in 6 months, if I roll that thing over a bunch of times, it's going to probably outperform the grade, and it removes the risk of getting a PSA 9, because you get a 9, you wait 6 months, opportunity cost there. And it's going to affect the bottleneck of the market in terms of like there'll be less supply of graded cards out there now that it's taking longer. So things that are new will hold a higher premium just because there's not enough supply, until over time the supply is able to get into the market and then bring down the prices again. That's what happened with vintage. So after like a year, so during 2020 there wasn't that much supply, but once all that, because people had a lot of vintage cards, especially common cards and, you know, base set hollows and stuff, like once those things hit the market, it crashed the prices. I think that's going to happen to ultra modern as well. And for ultra modern, like new sets like Ascended Heroes and stuff like that, the prices of the new sets and the new cards like the Gengar, Dragonite, they will sustain a higher price longer just because there's not enough of it. And then on top of that, sorry, car passing here, guys. Sorry about that. Yeah, so on top of that, you got Pokemon choking supply because they're not giving as much to distro. They're printing, but they're not printing enough. And then you got Bandai, which is very limited print on their boxes. And then Riftbound's a new game, so there's not a huge supply of that. And then DBZ Yu-Gi-Oh, you know that, right? Like there's not huge amount. So on top of that, there's not a big enough. Now, obviously if demand crashes, then it won't really matter then, and which happened during COVID, where during the panorama was, you know, as supply started hitting the market, it was a double whammy. As the supply started hitting the market, we were allowed to leave our homes and the pandemic went away, and then people lost interest at the same time as supply hit the market, so prices just crashed on the vintage side of things. Modern didn't go up enough, like it crashed as well, but it wasn't like big as vintage was, and it took a long time for those things to come back. And I think with the current situation here, who knows how long this demand will last. We're definitely booming hard right now. Based on last show, a lot of interest all around, but it's going to be very interesting to navigate going forward. Sending in graded cards, because a lot of companies rely on graded cards, right? All the companies that do the mystery bags, consignments like Z&G, their whole business model is consigning graded cards. And if that all slows down, that their business slows down, and it's a snowball effect, and we'll have to play by ear. But don't be surprised if they increase the price and the turnaround times again before they even have to shut down, because at some point they're just going to hit a tipping point where it's like, yeah, we can't catch up to this, and we just need to shut it down to catch up and clear the backlog. Otherwise, the customers are just going to be angry. Either way, customers are going to be angry, and it's just going to take too long. Because I remember 200-day turnaround time for bulk last time, so history may repeat itself, who knows. But are you guys sending in graded cards? If you are, drop in the comments why or why not. And yeah, I appreciate you guys checking out this video. If you do enjoy this type of content, please like, comment, subscribe, and I appreciate all you guys. Take it easy, have a good day. Andy out. Peace.